So today I'll be talking about Star Wars V: The Empire Strikes Back, directed by Irvin Kershner in 1980. So I have a special guest here today, and
Hi.
this is Sam. We've been pretty close for about 6 years now,
Yes, we have.
and one thing, believe it or not, that we haven't had in common is that I haven't been an aficionado of Star Wars, whereas she can't say the same, can ya?
I cannot. I
No.
cannot. You know, I first saw Star Wars on vacation when I was like 12 years old, and
Yeah.
I rented it from a Blockbuster video.
Yeah, that'll date it for you if you didn't already know the age.
Yeah, it was a while ago, but after I actually saw Return of the Jedi first.
Okay.
And
All right.
I just fell in love with the third one, and I think that's why I still kind of have a soft spot for it. But
Gotcha.
uh,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
the one of the original trilogy I have yet to see, as that's episode 6, and so I've gone through episode 4 already, and this is going to be episode 5, and so soon enough I'll be working through episode 6. But as of today, I haven't seen it yet, and so I'm curious as to where it's going to go. I will say though, some things do get spoiled for me. I know that Princess Leia, for example, has her infamous bikini. Of
all
all.
that in Jedi.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I've seen different spoofs of things, and then of course, pop culture has a funny way of going about these different things in terms of what's powerful and what's not. Um, and for better or worse, it impacts what I already know about this movie. I already know like the big twist at the end of this one, even though I had never seen this one until a couple weeks ago. That being, if you don't want to know, you can like go somewhere else. But
if you don't know,
it's hard. Let's put it that way. There are small children that probably don't know, but if you're in much of the popular culture or the lore of any kind of thing for more than 5 minutes, you'll probably know that Darth Vader is Luke Skywalker's father. And though that had been spoiled for me long before I saw this movie, I did feel that this movie had a fair amount of build up to it and enough foreshadowing that it felt reasonable for that kind of payoff. Um, but I do feel that it lost some of its shock value from that previous knowledge. But,
yeah, I could see that.
But I still felt it was worthwhile to the story. Um, and so, what makes episode 5, fun or not fun? Really, I don't really have any complaints with this movie, to be honest with you.
No, I've never had any complaints with it.
No, I feel like it does a good mix between having character development and having action scenes. I never really felt bombarded one way or the other. I don't usually get bombarded with character development as it is, but I never really felt it was too mushy or anything. Yeah, there's a romance that goes on, sure,
Right.
but this.
But it feels real.
Right.
It doesn't get in the way of anything.
No.
It's just kind of there, and there are a couple scenes dedicated to it, but that's all you need.
Right. Yeah. Because it's part of the story, but it's not the focal point of the story. And so, we had a fun time doing a whole take of this, and then I lost it, and because I fucked up.
We had what was it?
About 47 minutes. Yeah.
Of us just
bitching and moaning and ranting and raving and all that jazz. Yeah.
And then he went to save it, and he canceled it instead.
The worst.
Yeah.
So here's the gist. Carrie Fisher is a badass. I have to admit. I was wondering, so we're now we're in like the post Carrie Fisher and post Debbie Reynolds world for that matter too now. And I had seen the movies after those had happened. This is already on my to-do list, but it kind of got moved up, especially with the release of Rogue One and with the announcement of what Episode 8 is going to be called, that Last Jedi.
I still don't know how to feel about that as a diehard Star Wars fan. I'm still not sure about the title. It sounds too much like a do-all, end-all title.
Yeah, it doesn't even sound like there's gonna be an episode 9. I was wondering about that actually, but
Yeah.
we'll get there when we get there. There's a time and a place for that, and that time and place is a little bit later. Um, so what makes this movie work? Well, you have the action scenes for one, which really
Yeah.
is really a selling point for sure. For both the kids and the adults. This isn't some kids movie in the sense that adults are going to dread going. In fact, they're going to love it and maybe
Right.
even a little more. Um, but this isn't something that you can't take your kids to because it's going to be too. Well, I don't know. Any of the complaints that come from
It's not gonna be too scary unless maybe
No.
they find the breathing of Darth Vader really intimidating.
Yeah, there's no like Freddy Krueger or any axe murder or anything of that nature. I mean, yeah,
No.
you sure have like peril, and things, but there's going to be conflict regardless of whatever kind of movie you're going to have, even if it is aimed toward kids. But I feel that this really has a good mixture of that action and that character development. I felt like episode 4 had some good action and it was fun, but a lot of it was set up on this universe, quite literally universe, in the sense that you had a lot of characters that need to be introduced and even a lot of creatures that came into play too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that one of the better parts of episode 5 was really I mean, you have your obvious better parts, such as maybe your, the I am your father part, or when they come onto the off the Millennium Falcon and they meet Lando, Han Solo's friend that he apparently like stole it off, won it off.
Yeah.
It was Lando's at one point, and now it's Han Solo's. But you actually get to see this Lando character, and he felt, well, I would say 3-dimensional.
Yeah.
But
Because when you first meet him, you kind of get that feeling like, okay, there's something fishy going on with this guy.
yeah,
But as the story progresses, you kind of think, well, okay, maybe he's just Han's friend and he is trying to help him out. But
yeah,
right before Luke arrives, Vader shows up and
yeah,
you find out, oh, Lando was working for Vader. But at the same time, Lando still feels sympathy for his friends.
Right.
He gets angry when Vader says that Chewie and Leia have to be taken to his ship. That wasn't part of the original agreement.
Oh, that's something else too. Homeboy Vader keeps changing his shit every 5 minutes. He's like, Lando, do this for me. And then a few minutes later, he's like, yeah, I changed the rules. And Lando's like, what the fuck? And Vader's like, I don't care. I win. Like, this doesn't matter. Like, I'm gonna kick your ass and I'm gonna like it.
I'm a Nazi general.
That wasn't obvious enough. Touching on the concept that has been beaten to death in pop culture, Darth Vader being Luke Skywalker's father, it's an interesting turn. It does play off of the previous foreshadowing of when Luke is still on the farm with his aunt and uncle, and the subject gets changed quickly about what Luke's father did, anything about him for that matter. And then you also have the sense that even though, Vader's obviously on the dark side, there's something else about him. He can use the Force to choke people to death without you laying a physical hand on him. That's pretty messed up.
But the Force and the Sith, without trying to get into
The whole lore.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Uh-huh.
They are kind of parts of the same puzzle.
Right.
Kind of.
Well, the thing is too is you can. I have a lot of friends that are in the more like religious and spiritual community that could talk about the allegories with Christ and all that jazz. Luke Skywalker being that kind of, I don't know, follower and deciding whether or not he wants to, be on the Force and be on the good side or join the dark side with his father.
And that temptation is there, and
Right.
you definitely see that at the end of Jedi. So look out.
Yeah, I'll be keeping that in mind, or maybe I'll forget it so I can figure it out later for my own satisfaction.
Sorry.
That's all right. It's already been spoiled for me.
I'm sorry. I just love these movies.
I know, and that's the reason I have Sam on here with me, because I can offer the perspective of a fresh. Well, not that she's not fresh. My point is, this is my very first time watching this, so figuring this all out.
So you do have someone who knows a lot about Star Wars, and then some point of view that's coming from someone who doesn't really know a whole lot,
but is actually watching it for the first time.
Yeah, and I think that's important.
Yeah. And some of the things I'll pick at are really not even that big of a deal. I mean, in comparison to other things that could be much more of a bigger deal, like Princess Leia kissing Luke Skywalker in Episode 4, at least twice from what I recall, maybe more, but you get this feeling, well, maybe Mario's gonna find Princess Peach, maybe. Luke's going to get his, quote, catch. And whether or not that's the right thing is a whole different day and a whole different discussion. But, the point is, you have this feeling of a quest. And even if there aren't plumbers going through pipes, you can at least understand that, Luke is excited about this conquest. But then, you have this relationship build up between Han Solo and Leia, which feels legitimate. It doesn't feel forced. It feels it's actual part of the story, because Leia's so pissed off at him. She's just like, damn it, don't leave now. You keep trying to leave, and it's not cool, man.
We need you.
Yeah, but at the same time, I understand why Han wants to leave. He's basically got a hit out on him, for better or for worse. He owes Jabba the Hutt money. You don't see this pay off, and I do know this comes in later, i.e. Jedi, the Return of the Jedi movie, but that's a whole other can of worms. But you know that Han Solo actually has a reason. He's not a total ass to be an ass.
Right. But that's his character. His character is a pirate with a heart of gold.
Yeah, and that's why he just needs to take his heart out and get the damn gold. But I mean, he'd be dead, of course, but that's not the point. So, what works for this movie? Well, I would say that when you have actual character development, you have these scenes that really help you understand where they're coming from, these characters. You have Han Solo and Leia's budding relationship, and they do butt heads, sure, but you can see there's actual progress.
Mm-hmm.
And you can also see that Han Solo, he likes her, but he's trying to be all coy and like, oh, I don't really like you.
Well, I mean, his characteristic is in his name. At least one of his characteristics. I mean, he is Solo.
Yeah.
So to have someone else come
it's
into
all
his
about
life,
him.
It's very jarring for him, and he doesn't know how to handle it.
It rocks the boat for sure.
Yeah.
And then you have Princess Leia, who I guess I really appreciated that. It didn't really feel like she needed to be independent for the sake of not wanting a man, or she needed a man either. It was, she is someone that's fighting in the Rebel Alliance and that knows how to kick ass and take names, and she just so happens to like Han Solo.
Yeah.
And even questioning it, it's not even like a total win over either.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to find, and I have to give this movie props on that one. Yeah.
Something that we didn't mention in the 47-minute long rant we did was the how good of an actor Mark Hamill is in those scenes when he's on Dagobah with
Yoda.
With Yoda, yeah, because there was no other human being around. He was literally just on the set for like 6 months with a puppet. And they couldn't hear
practical
each other
practical
either.
acting is 1980. That's it's quite a different day in filmmaking,
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, and something that I will mention again is that I really liked how there were a few things that I didn't know that weren't spoiled for me. Particularly that when uh, when Luke got on this planet, he knew he needed to go, but he was kind of like, I don't really want to go, but I know I need to go. You know that uh, inner turmoil, say. But also when he gets on there and he finds this green little piece of shit named Yoda, but he doesn't know he's Yoda, and he keeps trying to look for him, and he's saying, "Hey, give me the Yoda," and Yoda, you know it's Yoda because that's spoiled for you, but but what I didn't know is that Yoda just keeps playing this game of like, "Oh, help you, I will," and all that talk
Ends up
of
going through his
pig
stuff
Latin.
and
Well, oh yeah, yeah.
he goes through his food and
Mm.
ends up taking him inside to try and make him food,
Mhm.
and that's when he finally tells him that, hey,
Yeah.
by the way,
By the way, I trained your Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I'm the
You
most
can't
powerful
stop
Jedi
talking about. Yeah.
that's still in existence.
And I gotta love the look on Luke's face of like, oh shit,
Oh.
you're that one.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he didn't have like more of a face of doom of like, oh, if you're the best one, then what is there? But you know the while that's an avenue that could have been explored, you know it doesn't need to be explored, and it's not. Um, but you have plenty of that conflict anyway, and those what some may call training montages, but I would say really helps Luke learn, and I feel it's more of an essential thing as opposed to a cliche here.
And we as an audience in those scenes in particular, Luke isn't just learning, we're learning with him.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest problems about the prequels is that there's no learning there.
Mm.
You know, you don't really know about the worlds in the prequels unless you're a huge nerdist like myself and you know you go online and you start reading things about this.
Right.
But
yeah.
You know, in Empire, you see what Luke is going through, and we're with him every step of the way.
Yeah.
So that's another reason why the movie is so good, because the audience is able to connect and engage with our main character.
Yeah. It's interesting too because there's a lot of time that you know Luke is actually away from Han Solo and Leia. So not only does it give those two time to develop their relationship, as I mentioned before, but it gives Luke this time to think, okay, how do I not just improve myself, but how do I prepare myself for this inevitable battle between the dark side and I, and how do I handle this responsibly? Because you know, theoretically, he could lash out and kill, but he doesn't,
right?
Because that would inevitably make him part of the dark side. You know, giving in to your temptations.
Yeah, it's in the Sith code.
Yeah. And the other thing too is that you have this pretty fun battle scene. You know, even before the "I am your father" and all the stuff where Luke falls down and you think, oh, his ass is dead, and he just keeps falling and falling. Even before that, you have this whole encounter with the whole lightsabers and I'm thinking, yeah,
objects flying. At
oh
Luke
yeah, that's something I hadn't thought of until now. Darth Vader just has the time of his life, like throwing shit at Luke. Everything but the kitchen sink.
Rogue One.
Oh,
wait until you see Rogue One.
I believe it. Yeah.
He's got a pretty badass scene in there.
Yeah. Anyway, I feel like this movie does have that good mix of those different kinds of scenes, and the ice planet is pretty fun too at the beginning of the movie, with the planet Hoth. I still think that sounds like a detective, or you know, I do think it sounds like a detective, but they're on this ice planet, and the Empire has found them anyway, and in that opening crawl, of course, and you have Luke approach the abominable snowman, for lack of a better term, and he summons the Force to get this lightsaber back, while he's hanging upside down, which I feel like you'd like lose a lot of blood or have a lot of blood hit your brain all at once. Or...
Yeah. Well, and then he falls like on his neck. I don't know how that felt for Mr. Mark Hamill.
Well, aside from the car crash he got into, back with that reconstructive stuff with
yeah, I forgot.
yeah,
about that. Yeah.
So this may sound like I know a lot more than I really do. I just happen to pick up bits and pieces of trivia. With the Star Wars Holiday Special, for example, was right after he had all this reconstructive surgery to his face, so he kind of looks like a mannequin.
I was just gonna
or
say,
as I've heard it
doll.
before. Yes, that's the reference that I've heard.
Yeah.
But he has this plasticity to him. But obviously, in the couple of years between that holiday special, which I may or may not do later, yeah, maybe we'll see.
So boring.
How's my sanity gonna be?
You're not gonna have it by the end.
Yeah, probably not. But the point is, what's sanity, right? But after that time, and by the time Empire Strikes Back, it's not really that noticeable. And even if it was, he does a good job with it.
And I mean, you could arguably say, well, he was just in the snow for a day and a half, got drugged by a monster into a cave. Okay, he's got a cut under his eye. What would you expect?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I do appreciate too that, you know, we have this Han Solo that obviously is, you know, Solo, but at the same time, he cares about Luke, and he's like, is Luke gonna be back? He's not gonna dip out, you know, without Luke coming back onto the turf of the Rebel base. So you get a little more of a humanization of Han Solo as well, or you know, rather like a more of a complexity, a learning, say, a bit of an instructional piece. In terms of what else to really talk about with this movie, truthfully, we could go on. I think one thing to mention too is that aside from the whole pop culture thing, sometimes you can have merchandising impact you without even really watching the darn movies. When I was growing up, my dad had a lot of trips overseas for his work, and a lot of times was spent in Germany, and they had these like Kinder eggs, or basically just chocolate egg shells that were edible, and then they had little yellow eggs or white eggs depending on how special the toy was. Then they had little toys, but probably in right around the time of the prequels being released, so this would make a little more sense for you. The line of Star Wars hippos, yes, Star Wars hippos, were released.
That's still weird.
Yeah, it is a little weird to think about, but it was so fun when you're like 10 or 12 and getting into all these toys. And that's the thing too, you know. Even though it is a very marketable line for sure, and Disney buying Star Wars, and you know, or you know, Lucas selling it to them.
Yeah, that could be an entirely different video on its own.
Well, Star Wars Land. That's what I'll say.
Yeah.
But you know, this is a perfect example of how merchandising can impact, you know, the society, even without having to watch the movies as a prereq. You know, I knew who Han Solo was before I watched these movies. I knew who Princess Leia was. I knew about her Buns of Steel, or her Slave Keeny, or you have Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader and Luke, I am your father, and all these other things that seem so commonplace now. But if you don't know about the movie lore, it is interesting to get into. And this was the reason, you know, I mean, Sam and I are really good friends anyway, but this is the reason I brought her in, especially for this one, because we both really like this movie, but for, I would say, relative similar reasons, but completely different perspectives.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I still really like this movie, even after taking all of the hype parts out of it, even after I thought, this thing is so hyped. I still really liked it. And I know that wasn't necessarily the case for you. In fact, it probably wasn't. Yeah.
No.
No.
I mean, I knew that Luke was Darth Vader's father, but the thing was, I didn't know which movie it was revealed in.
Ah.
Because I was
Yeah.
12 years old, you know?
Mhm.
And like you, I knew certain things about the movie because it's so hyped up in pop culture. But
Right.
part of the reason why I watched Jedi first is because my mom told me that's the one where Luke said, or Vader said that he was Luke's father. I was like,
Oh.
okay, well, I'm going to watch that one. And it didn't turn out to be that one.
Surprise!
But, yeah, surprise. But, yeah, Jedi was the only one that Blockbuster Video had. Sorry.
What does that say about Jedi?
I don't know.
Those greasy motherfuckers weren't even checking that one out. Who knows? I think the kind of closing thoughts about this movie. Essentially, the action is strong. It's fun. I could watch a movie for more than 10 minutes, which is very hard for me to do.
Mhm.
So if you can captivate my attention for your runtime of 2 hours, props.
And can
Yeah.
I add something?
Oh, sure.
Just like episode 4, it's still a story with timeless characters, and
Yeah.
that's something that anybody can enjoy. You still have
Yeah.
the princess and the hero, the pirate, the two bumbling sidekicks, even though they're kind of separated in this movie.
You mean there isn't one that's like short and one that's fat?
No.
Uh,
But yeah, I think that's why these movies have, specifically the original trilogy, has standed for so long, is because the characters are so relatable and the stories are simple.
mhm.
And that's something that
This isn't a rocket science degree that you need to
Yeah.
have before you watch these.
anybody can watch it and enjoy it
Yeah.
and get something out of it.
But it's also not so dumb in the sense of it's not insulting to your intelligence. There are movies out there you don't need more than a 5th grade education, but at the same time you feel like they're insulting you. Like there are some things that I
Right.
mean,
This movie takes
Yeah.
you on a ride, and
right,
the pace,
a fun ride at
yeah,
that.
a very fun ride,
Yeah.
and the pacing goes so smoothly. You know, you
Mhm.
have those action scenes, but then they're kind of balanced out with the love scenes,
Yeah.
so you can take a break and kind of have a breather and enjoy these kind of pretty romantic scenes. But then you jump right back into action.
And also appreciate the action too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you have that energy to appreciate the action as well.
And the connection to the characters to appreciate the
Mhm.
connection. I know one of the worst movies out there that's been reviewed of all time is this Ballistic X vs. Sever with Antonio Banderas and Lucy Liu. And the main reason it has a lot of criticism is that it's essentially just non-stop action.
Mm.
And, you know, I like Lucy Liu, and I like Antonio Banderas, and I tried watching about, I don't know, like 8 to 10 minutes of it, and I just, it's
There's
just
just no
a
breather.
sensory overload, for one thing. It's hard to be like, okay, why do I give a damn? But in this movie, I was like, okay, well, you know, Luke is growing in his dedication to the Force. You have Leia, who's conflicted with whether or not Han's an ass, or more importantly, how is this going to impact her kicking ass of the Empire? You know, how is this going to working in the Rebel Alliance?
And how is this new relationship going to affect Han Solo?
Yes.
You have that conflict with him as well,
Yeah.
even though he doesn't show it very much, but you still do kind of see it.
Yeah.
I think it's most apparent when he's about to be put in carbonite and they say, I love you, I know.
Yes, and that is
Which-
something I hadn't mentioned before when we were doing an original take of this, but that connection, that I love you, felt not only genuine, but it was essential to that scene. You know, that solidified that
Right.
things had actually progressed.
Because they didn't know if they were going to see each other again.
And they sure as hell didn't really love each other before, even if they were getting that connection. They were building it up.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not on an I love you standard. It was like, I like you, but I hate saying I do.
Well, and just Harrison's Ford delivery of that line too is for as a lady who likes not very emotional men. That was incredibly hot to me. I was like, okay, Harrison Ford,
you bought me over.
You can just take my pants off. That's fine.
I had a feeling you'd say something like that. And all right.
I'm sorry. We've had a long day, and
I hear you.
I think we're both exhausted.
Yeah, I would agree. But yeah, he certainly has his coy style
Yes.
of badassery and not giving a shit. And of course, you also have him in Indiana Jones and roughly the same. I mean, hell, if I remember right, the Raiders of the Lost Ark was also in 1980, the same year as The Empire Strikes Back. So this really, shows Harrison Ford was a good choice, and again, was a good sport for that matter. Yeah, for sure.
He actually wanted Han's character to die at the end of episode 5.
I did not know that.
I did.
And well, I'll give a slight spoiler, but won't say when. He does die later, just not this one.
Yeah.
But, that's quite a revelation.
He did, because of scheduling conflicts with the first Indiana Jones movie.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the executive producers, I think, it wasn't Lucas, but one of the executive producers agreed with him that somebody had to go. Somebody had to, sacrifice themselves. Somebody had to have a closing number, basically.
Well, sure. This is totally musical land now.
Yep, this is musical.
Nailed it.
We're in Star Wars the musical, guys.
Oh, God.
I'm surprised that hasn't become a thing yet.
Sooner or later it will.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
I have faith. I believe in the Force enough. Anyway. Yeah, it is certainly an interesting thing when you really think about the timings and the constraints. And that's something else too, that this movie doesn't really have any technical flaws. And yes, I saw a remastered version, but even from hearing what things were before, any of the things that were, I don't know, maybe errors or not the best weren't exactly, I don't know, anything to be put on the list of worst movies. That's my other section that I do here. This is certainly not a candidate for that list. This is one of the better movies on the quest for the best here, and I love rhyming, and so should you. So anyway, I would say this movie is fourth on my list as of the filming of this, which is between A Clockwork Orange and Shutter Island. I still love the surreal nature of A Clockwork Orange, and that's not to say I don't like the simplicity of the Star Wars Empire Strikes Back movie, but I really could appreciate the scenery and this different story I would have never thought of that I saw in A Clockwork Orange. Now, however, even though the story of Star Wars is a more simple one, it is a very well done story, and it certainly holds a lot of merit, and that's why I feel it's where it is.
And like I said before, it's timeless.
Yeah, agreed. I watched this movie and I didn't feel like, this is so 1980. I never got that feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely see that the effects are a little bit outdated, but even for today's effects, they still hold up pretty nicely.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Well, I feel like that's pretty much all we have to say on this. This was a lot of fun to do, and this is an exciting collaboration, and it's quite the ride. And so,
How long did we did we drive here today?
So we met halfway basically. We both spent roughly 2 to 3 hours coming from our respective spots, just north of Indiana and just south of Indiana to come around the Indianapolis area.
For other things, we just happened to do this tonight.
Right. I had the bright idea of making Star Wars finally happen here. And so I even got my little Chewbacca shirt, and Sam's got her
first order pants.
Yeah, fancy schmancy. Like I said, merchandising's a bitch. But aside from that, this was a really fun ride, and it doesn't. Not only does it not insult your intelligence, it gets you to really think about those simply put together
in life,
and yet complex at the same time too.
Yeah.
Because it's the simple questions but complex answers. That's the way I see it. Do you stick with the Force or the good side, or do you delve into the Sith? And I'm sure there's other philosophical things you could dive into, but I feel like that's good for today, for us.
Yeah.
And so, well, this was a lot of fun to do.
It was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chris.
Of course, absolutely. And hopefully we can get something together.
Yeah.
We may even do Return of the Jedi together. We shall see.
Ooh, I would like that.
Yeah, especially because this is that's your go-to movie.
And we can actually, make a
finally
script
talk about it
and compare notes. We're just doing this from a hotel room randomly. So sorry, guys.
Oh no, all of the 10 people that have ever watched these things. Well, as I was saying before, thank you guys so much. This is really a lot of fun. This is something I just really do it in my spare time to just kick it and get a better idea of all these movies. The real reason I started this whole thing anyway was to finally get my ass to watch these well-acclaimed movies, and even some well-acclaimed pieces of shit. But each side.
It
really
depends on your perspective of things.
And honestly, I'm a sucker for bad movies too. But that's not the reason I like this movie. This movie is legitimately good.
Yes, it is. Go see it.
Agreed.
Go watch it a million times.
Yeah, I'm about to say, as I was saying previously today, even if you've seen it 100 times, I'd say she's probably seen it 95. Mm-hmm. But go see it for the 101st, or basically just see it.
Just watch it.
Yeah. Give it next week, and even if it's in the next month, I would still say go do it. And so, and in terms of how things are, post Carrie Fisher, I can see now why people really looked up to her. When she passed on, I was like, bruh, it's a celebrity. Who cares? And I still probably have this same kind of not trying to be too attached to celebrities, but I can understand, where this development of badassery comes in.
Right.
She's pretty. Not only is she pretty fun, and she is pretty too, but she's also a very strong woman. And whether or not she needs a man is not really part of the big picture.
Right.
It's more of an
afterthought.
Yeah, it's more of a character trait that's more built in as opposed to up front and in your face. So, anyway, that's all, folks.
Yeah.
All right.
See you later, guys.
See you later.